Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy, and today we're talking about the latest in a surprisingly solid stretch of horror films to hit theaters in recent months called Strange Darling. And this is a movie where the story is told non-sequentially, so we're going to do this review out of order as well. I'm going to start by giving you only my most broad, bare-bones reaction to Strange Darling, and then I'm going to give it a rating. Actually, first I'm going to beg you to like this video and subscribe to this channel because I'm a sick person who lives off your validation in the same way that Tarantino lives off close-ups of women's feet. And then I'm going to give the movie a rating, which is for those of you who, like me when I saw it, know almost nothing about Strange Darling and prefer to go in blind. After that, I'll dive a little bit deeper, not into spoiler territory, but just a tad, just an angstrom more detailed with my thoughts. And then for those of you lucky enough to have seen Strange Darling already, I will dive into some spoiler talk at the end, but fret not. I will give ample warning before that moment arrives. Okay, so all I knew going into Strange Darling is what I saw from the trailer. Basically just a one-night stand gone wrong. Girl says to the guy, "Are you a serial killer?" Cut to the guy hunting around looking for her with a shotgun. Now, there's nothing in that premise that speaks to me specifically as a horror movie fan, but I did go see it opening weekend for a couple of reasons. First, and you've probably already noticed this, but Strange Darling is getting quite a bit of buzz and universal acclaim from critics. It's currently sitting at a 7.8 on IMDb and a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, especially for a horror movie, those are incredible numbers. And second, this movie stars an actress named Willa Fitzgerald, who I briefly mentioned on this channel last year in my review for Mike Flanagan's Netflix series, The Fall of the House of Usher. House of Usher was probably my single favorite piece of horror media that came out last year, and in this huge, talented ensemble cast, I thought easily the best performance came from Willa Fitzgerald, who played the young Madeline Usher. She just had this magnetic, can't-look-away screen presence, and I made a mental note, even though I'd never seen her in anything before, just keep an eye out, because I'm interested in whatever she does next. So, with reasonably high expectations, I sat down to Strange Darling over the weekend, and guys, was frankly blown away. It was fresh and exciting and original. It honored its influences while still feeling totally unique, and I honestly was not bored for a single second. The performances of Willa Fitzgerald and her co-star Kyle Gallner were honestly among the two best horror performances I've seen in recent years. So yeah, go in blind, but I really can't recommend enough that you go see this movie in theaters soon. I mean, what are you waiting for? When have I ever led you wrong? Didn't you give The Nun 3.5 stars? Okay, I haven't led you astray in some time. It's been a good while. I am gonna give Strange Darling 4.5 stars out of 5. Alright, now for those of you who may not still be totally sold on the movie, or maybe you just want to know some of my other not too spoilery thoughts. So what really sets Strange Darling apart right off the bat is it says, here is a movie in 6 chapters, and then boom, chapter 3. So instantly you're like, alright, someone grew up watching Tarantino movies, big shoes to fill. Let's see if he can land this plane. Like that, by the way, mixed metaphors and a callback to my Tarantino reference from the beginning of this video. We got layers, symbolism, these are the reasons you subscribe to this channel. And guys, land the plane he does. JT Mollner is the name of the director here, and he's just got such a command of this non-linearity of his story structure that, I mean, it's actually a very simple story that he's working with, but it feels like you're watching f***ing Memento or something. It's actually really good. I also love as they're introducing each new chapter, how the soundtrack sort of shifts gears to a couple of Chopin's nocturnes, or at least I think it's the nocturnes. I'm sure it's Chopin. I love how I'm showing off there, but that's also completely where my ability to recognize classical music stops, by the way. It's like wine tasting. You're like, that's a red. And it's like, yes, but what kind of red? What vintage? What year? It's like, how should I know? How does anyone know? So yeah, it's Chopin. What song by Chopin? Are you kidding me? Who cares? Go watch it for yourself and find out. By the way, if you're ever in Paris, I strongly recommend paying a quick visit to Chopin's tomb. It's in the middle of literally the coolest cemetery you will ever lay eyes on. So there's a little travel tip for you, huh? You knew there was a reason you stuck around. Back to the movie, it also looks very cool, very unique. It was actually shot entirely on 35mm by the cinematographer, an actor you may have heard of by the name of Giovanni Ribisi. I'm sure you all know him from a bunch of different things, but to me he will always be Chad, the ill-fated bass player of The Wonders. And I was fascinated to learn that he was a first-time cinematographer. It's weird because you could almost tell that was the case, but in a really good way. Like when someone gets into the habit of doing something routinely, they may be technically better at it than a novice, but they're also maybe going to think a little bit more inside the box. And there's a lot of outside the box filmmaking going on here. It's not just the cinematography, it's the storytelling and the acting and the direction. It's all just very one of a kind. And that's why I think Strange Darling is destined to become a cult classic. I don't think it'll clean up at the box office, unfortunately. I saw it in an otherwise empty screening, but the people who do see it, I think are really going to love it. The storytelling is crisp and intriguing. The characters are very memorable. It all just feels like something you haven't seen before. And now, ladies and and gentlemen, for the spoiler section. That's right, the part of the video that you are an absolute buffoon, a complete troglodyte for watching if you haven't seen the movie first. And that may sound harsh, but it's just the way I feel, okay? Spoiler talk begins now. Holy shit! Holy shit. Did you see that coming? I did not see that coming. Strange Darling took a pretty big risk in my view, because to me, this movie actually still works pretty well if you just watch it in sequential order from chapters 1 through 6. Because you've still got the intrigue of like the whole hookup and this is how she wants it, but then it's like, oh no, she's actually a serial killer, but now the hunter's becoming the hunted and this dude looks pissed. You've still got the unique camera work and the fantastic performances and just the fast-paced intensity. I feel like this was going to be a good time, even in the correct order. So as a filmmaker, do you dare mess with that? Because there's a reason most stories aren't told non-sequentially like this. Often it feels like a gimmick, or it's gonna test your audience's patience past its breaking point, or it could just end up turning the entire thing into this jumbled, cluttered mess. You've got to have a lot of confidence in your vision to do what Strange Darling does here, but in my view, it totally pays off. Everything is revealed at exactly the right time. There's a good 20 minutes in the middle of this movie where you're like, oh no, I think I know what's going on here. This is just her kind of role-playing fantasy, just carried really, really far. But then you remember that dead dude on the floor in the kitchen and him shooting her at the end of Act 5, and you're like, wait, no, that still doesn't quite make sense. And then the reveals come, and when they do, it's incredible, because it both makes everything that came before make perfect sense, and it still keeps you excited for what's going to happen in chapters 2 and 6. And that's the sign of great non-linear storytelling, that when the reveals come, it doesn't necessarily spell the end of your interest in the rest of the story. And that twist especially makes the performances from Fitzgerald and Gallner really impressive here, because they're both essentially playing two completely different characters. She's the murderous psycho and the terrified victim. He's both the good guy tentatively trying out some new shit with this girl he barely knows, and the coke-fueled maniac of chapters 3 through 5. And what's fascinating to watch is there are so many moments where the characters are both of those things at the exact same time. This actually kind of reminded me of a couple other really good movies, Promising Young Woman and Gone Girl, and frankly, I'm happy to report that Strange Darling is 100% in the same class as those two movies. Because for me, 2024 has been a year of good but not great movies. I swear that like more than half the movies I've logged have just been 3, maybe 3.5 stars. So honestly, it just feels like a relief to finally see a movie that I can unequivocally come away being like, I fucking loved that movie. Can't recommend it enough, guys. Go see Strange Darling, and if you've already seen it, which probably because you're at the end of the spoiler section, go see it again. Alright guys, that about does it for me today, but stay tuned because we've got plenty more spooky content coming soon. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this video, and here's hoping you survive to see the next one.